Hey folks, it's Friday and my hands are behind my back. I am striding down a hill and I'm walking. Let me tell you, I'm walking. Oh, and by the way, my companion as I walk is the most wonderful book, Beneath My Feet, Writers on Walking, introduced and edited by Duncan Minshull. Now, before I actually get into what these writers have written, I'd like to read you just a little bit from the opening sequence because it's going to help put this whole collection, of which I've done several books of editions of this series, and I intend to do several more. This is Notting Hill Editions, is an independent British publisher. The company was founded by Tom Cremer, 1930 to 2017, champion of innovation and the man responsible for popularizing Rubik's Cube. Bet you didn't know that. After a successful business career in toy invention, Tom decided, this is good news, at the age of 80, to fulfill his passion for literature and revive the art of the essay. Hailed as the shape of things to come, the family-run print press brings to print the most surprising thinkers of the past and present. In an era of information overload, these collectible books distill ideas that linger on the mind. Now, can we go back to the 14th century? Oh, what's the relevance of something in the 14th century to today? Well, not too long ago, in the midst of the beginnings of the pandemic, I directed a show, To Across, and one of the individuals that was mentioned there in a line throughout all the dialogue was Petrarch. And I've reintroduced myself to Petrarch thanks to Beneath My Feet, Writers on Walking. Here he says in Choose Company with unusual care. When I came to look about for a companion, I found, strangely enough, that hardly one among my friends seemed suitable. So rarely do we meet with just the right combination of personal taste and characteristics, even among those who are dearest to us. Oh, this one was too apathetic. That one? Over-anxious. This one too slow. Oh, that one too hasty. One was too sad, another over-cheerful, one more simple, another more sagacious than I desired. I feared this one's taciturnity and that one's loquacity. The heavy deliberation of some repelled me as much as the lean incapacity of others. I rejected those who were likely to irritate me by cold want of interest, as well as those who might weary me by their excessive enthusiasm. Now, such defects, however grave, could be borne with at home, for charity suffers all things, and friendship accepts any burden. But it is quite otherwise on a journey, where every weakness becomes much more serious. So, as I was bent upon pleasure and anxious that my enjoyment should be unalloyed, I looked about me with unusual care, balanced against one another the various characteristics of my friends, and without committing any breach of friendship. I silently condemned every trait which might prove disagreeable on the way. And, would you believe it, I finally turned homeward for aid and proposed the ascent to my only brother, who is younger than I, and with whom you are well acquainted. He was delighted and gratified beyond measure by the thought of holding the place of a friend as well as of a brother. At the time fixed, we left the house. By evening, reached Malsine, which lies at the foot of the mountain to the north. Having rested there a day, we finally made the ascent this morning, with no companions except 2 servants. And a most difficult task it was. The mountain is very steep and almost an inaccessible mass of stony soil. But as the poet has well said, remorseless toil conquers all. It was a long day. The air fine. We enjoyed the advantages of vigor of mind and strength of agility of body, and everything else essential to those who were engaged in such an undertaking. This is from the ascent of Mount Ventoux, and it was written in 1336. Not 1 week ago, I was in the mountains at Highland, North Carolina, and choosing a companion for a walk, and I can say this piece is most timely, for I followed its dictates and had the best of companions. What a walk, or should I say, walks they were. Now, our next stroll is going to be with Virginia Woolf. Between tea and dinner, no one perhaps has ever felt passionately toward a lead pencil, but there are circumstances which it can become supremely desirable to possess one. Moments when we are set upon having an object, an excuse for walking half across London between tea and dinner. As the fox hunter hunts in order to preserve the breed of foxes, and the golfer plays in order that open spaces may be preserved from builders, so when the desire comes upon us to go street rambling, the pencil does for a pretext. And getting up, we say, really, I must buy a pencil. As if under cover of this excuse, we could indulge safely in the greatest pleasure of town life in winter, rambling streets of London. The hour should be evening and the season winter, for in winter the champagne brightness of the air and the sociability of the streets are grateful. We are not then taunted, as in summer, by the longing for shade and solitude and sweet airs from the hay fields. The evening hour, too, gives us the irresponsibility which darkness and lamplight bestow. We are no longer quite ourselves. As we step out of the house on a fine evening between 4 and 6, we shed the self our friends know us by, and become part of that vast Republican army of anonymous trampers whose society is so agreeable after the solitude of one's own room. For there we sit surrounded by objects which perpetually express the oddity of our own temperaments and enforce the memories of our own experience. But when the door shuts on us, all that vanishes. The shell-like covering which our souls have excreted to house themselves, to make for themselves a shape distinct from others, is broken, and there is left, of all these wrinkles and roughness, a central oyster of perceptiveness, an enormous eye. How beautiful a street is in winter. It is at once revealed and obscured. Here, vaguely, one can trace symmetrical straightness, straight avenues of doors and windows. Here, under the lamplights, are floating islands of pale light, through which pass quickly bright men and women, who, for all their poverty and shabbiness, wear a certain look of unreality, an air of triumph, as if they had given life the slip, so that life, deceived of her prey, blunders on without them. But after, we are only gliding smoothly on the surface. The eye is not a miner, not a diver, not a seeker after buried treasure. It floats us smoothly down a stream, resting, pausing. The brain sleeps, perhaps, as it looks. How beautiful a London street is, then, with its islands of light, its long grooves of darkness, and on one side of it perhaps some tree-sprinkled, grass-grown space where night is folding herself to sleep naturally. And as one passes the iron railing, one hears those little cracklings and stirrings of leaf and twig which seem to suppose the silence of fields all round them. An owl hooting, and far away the rattle of a train in the valley. But this is London, we are reminded. High among the bare trees are hung oblong frames of reddish-yellow light. Windows. There are points of brilliance burning steadily like low stars. Lamps. This empty ground which holds the country in it and its peace is only a London square set about by offices and houses, where at this hour fierce lights burn over maps, over documents, over desks, where clerks sit turning with wetted forefinger the endless files of correspondences, all more suffusedly. The firelight wavers, and the lamplight falls upon the privacy of some drawing room. Its easy chairs, its papers, its china, its inlaid table, and the figure of a woman, accurately measuring out the precise number of spoons of tea which, she looks at the door as if she heard a ring downstairs and somebody asking, "Is she in?" Oh, but here we must stop peremptorily. We are in danger of digging deeper than the eye approves. We are impeding our passage down the smooth stream by catching at some branch or root. At any moment, the sleeping army may stir itself and wake us in us a thousand violins and trumpets in response. the army of human beings may rouse itself and assert all its oddities and sufferings and sordidities. Let us dally a little longer, be content still with surfaces only, the glossy brilliance of the motor omnibuses, the carnal splendor of the butcher's shop with their yellow flanks and purple streaks, the blue and red bunches of flowers burning so bravely through the plate glass of the florist's windows. For the eye has this strange property. It rests only on beauty. Like a butterfly, it seeks color and basks in warmth. On a winter's night like this, when nature has been at pains to polish and preen herself, it brings back the prettiest trophies, breaks off little lumps of emerald and coral, as if the whole earth were made of precious stone. The thing it cannot do, one is speaking of the average unprofessional eye, is to compose these trophies in such a way as to bring out the more obscure angles and relationships. Passing, glimpsing, everything seems accidentally but miraculously sprinkled with beauty, as if the tide of trade which deposits its burden so punctually and prosaically upon the shores of Oxford Street had this night cast upon nothing but treasure. With no thought of buying, the eye is sportive and generous. It creates, it adorns, it enhances. Standing out in the street, one may build up all the chambers of an imaginary house and furnish them at one's will with sofa, table, carpet. Oh, that rug? It will do for the hall. That alabaster bowl stand on a carved table in the window. Our merrymaking shall be reflected in that thick, round mirror. But, having built and furnished the house, one is happily under no obligation to possess it. One can dismantle it in the twinkling of an eye and build and furnish another house with other chairs, other glasses. Or let us indulge ourselves at the antique jewelers. Among the trays of rings and the hanging necklaces, let us choose those pearls, for example, and then imagine how, if we put them on, life would be changed. It becomes instantly between 2 and 3 in the morning. The lamps are burning very white in the deserted streets of Mayfair. Only motor cars are abroad at this hour, and one has a sense of emptiness, of airiness, of secluded gaiety. Wearing pearls, wearing silk, one steps out on the balcony which overlooks the gardens of sleeping Mayfair. There are a few lights in the bedrooms of great peers, returned from court, of silk-stocking footmen, of dowagers who have pressed the hands of statesmen. The cat creeps along the garden wall. Love-making is going on sibilantly, seductively, in the darker places of the room behind thick green curtains. strolling sedately, as if he were promenading a terrace, beneath which the shires and counties of England lie sunbathed. The aged Prime Minister recounts to Lady So-and-so, with the curls and the emeralds, the true history of some great crisis in the affairs of the land. We seem to be riding on the top of the highest mast of the tallest ship, and yet, at the same time, we know that nothing of this sort matters. Love is not proved thus, nor great achievements completed thus, so that we sport with the moment and preen our feathers in it lightly as we stand on the balcony, watching the moonlit cat creep along Princess Mary's garden wall. But what could be more absurd? It is, in fact, on the stroke of 6. It is a winter's evening. We are walking to the Strand to buy a pencil from Street Haunting, a London Adventure, 1930. Now here follows a pastiche of a little bit of this and a little bit of that. Anatole France says, "It is good to collect things, but, oh, better to go on walks." Charles Dickens observed, "If I couldn't walk fast and far, I should just explode and perish." Saint Augustine, solvitur ambulanto, loosely translated, it is solved by walking. Patrick Lee Fermer observes, a walk is only a step away from a story, and every path tells. Marianne Radmacher says, "Live with intention, walk to the edge." Oh, and you know this one. Lord Byron, he says, "She walks in beauty like the night." Dr. Benjamin Spock says, "You don't have to do anything to teach your child to walk." Emily Bronte, "Come, walk with me. Come, walk with me." And Kalahari Bushmen say, "When we die, the wind blows away our footprints." And H.G. Wells, "There will be many footpaths in Utopia." Oh, we've strolled through just moments of this volume. I do encourage you to get it, to read what other people have said about walking. It is the best thing we can do for ourselves. So, Until next Friday. Take a walk. Take a hike. I'll see you next Friday.